Okay, right, well, let's get started. So, yeah, I'm Chris from Focusrite Novation. I'm here on this session to talk about the launch products that we have. And the launch products have basically have been recently extended quite a bit. The original launch product was the Launchpad, which has been around for probably about 5 years or so now. And Launchpad was designed in conjunction with Ableton software and was really designed to be one of the very first grid-based controllers that would allow you to take hands-on control over Ableton software. I mean, if you're, if you're producing music, if you're playing live, of course, you can use Ableton with a mouse, and this is fine. And I'm sort of creating my tracks here just by using the mouse and the trackpad on the computer itself. But the real limitation of that is that I'm not able to really sort of trigger more than one thing at any time. And if I want to be able to kind of make quick changes across a whole range of different sort of sounds and clips that I have set up in my Ableton Live setup, it's very awkward and difficult to do that. Plus, it's not a great deal of fun to be sort of just stood staring at your screen and looking and just sort of clicking on certain things. It can be quite difficult. So the whole point to the Launchpad really is, well, it's this product here, hopefully you can see. The whole point to this product is really to put the control of Ableton Live under your fingertips. So, I mean, if you can see on the screen, on the computer screen here, the way that we're set up, I've got a whole load of individual clips loaded into Ableton. And if I just take a look, I can see a red band around those clips as well. And if we look at the Launchpad itself, that is actually the representation of what we're seeing on the screen. So everything on the screen there is actually mirrored on the Launchpad. Now, if I want to access other clips and other samples that I've got in my Ableton Live setup, I can use the navigation arrows here to move up and down and access the different parts. So I can basically use one Launchpad to control the whole of my Ableton Live set. So this is the kind of the main aspect of the Launchpad itself. It is the clip launcher, if you like, in this session window. But there's a number of other features that the Launchpad also has as well. Across the top here, I've got my sort of page buttons, and this is set to the session page. If I then go to the mixer page, what we've got now is a whole load of additional functionality available to me. Well, basically, I can choose the different pages running down the side here. So if I press the volume button here, what I have now is essentially a representation of the volume fader. So if you look, keep your eyes on track 1 on the Ableton Live set there. If I use my finger on the actual Launchpad, you can see here that I'm able to sort of control the volumes. Hopefully you can see, it might be a bit small, but but basically, yeah, this actually now, well, it acts as a fader, acts as a mixing desk, and again, I can move across left and right to access the various different tracks in my Ableton Live set. So it's a really nice way of being able to control everything within there. Other pages that I have on the mixer page as well is I have a pan control. This allows me to put the position of the sound to the left or to the right-hand side, and I can do this, again, just by using the buttons like a fader, or I can just simply press the button and I can get to that point. In addition, we also have send effects, and this is quite a nice feature. Basically, a send effect is where you would take a single channel. So, for example, I'm going to take this channel 3 here, this tops channel, and I can then send that out down to an effect that is on what's called a returns channel. So I can send that audio to a return channel. I'll just trigger that by triggering that on Launchpad. I'll come back to my mixer page, go to my send, and now I can use the send to add effects to that. So you can see you've got quite a lot of versatility and control just directly from the Launchpad itself. Now, there's a couple of other things as well. If you've seen Launchpad on YouTube, you'll see there's a lot of people producing videos where they're able to, do real full-on performances from this as an instrument. And I've got a little setup here on this particular channel. It's called Kill the Robot. And on this user page, I've set this up now so that I have various different bass chord sounds and drum sounds. And they're arranged on the Launchpad to give me a nice ergonomic way of playing. So for example here, I have my drum sounds set up. I'll just quickly show you how this is done actually. If I just double click on the track, you'll see that I've created a drum rack here. And here's the kick, snare, and hi-hat. And they're actually placed under the fingers at that point. If I scroll down a little bit on my drum rack, you'll see I've got some bass chords there just running up the side, and that's because they sit nicely under my thumb. So, with the Launchpad, I can start to treat it almost like I'm doing a performance on a keyboard-based sort of a piece of equipment. So, and then if you start to put the two together, so you can start to use this as a really nice sort of performance tool as well. So that's the Launchpad. I'm mindful of the fact that we've got quite a few products to get through, so I just want to move on now to the Launch Control XL. And this is the latest controller from Novation. Now, we've seen how the Launchpad can be used to trigger clips and to do performance-based stuff as well. The Launch Control kind of takes that level of control really to the next level. It's based around 24 rotary pots. We've got 8 faders as well, so it's, you know, we have full fading control over our software. We've got 16 buttons down at the bottom as well. And just to kind of give you an idea of what this is doing, essentially, if I just, I'll just open up a brand new Ableton live set here to a default Ableton live set. And you'll see up at the top, we've got our straightforward kind of clip launching area where the red band is. But if I move down, certainly on this audio channel here, you'll see I have 2 send controls. That's for the send and return effects that we spoke about earlier. I have a pan control here and a fader, and then I've got a few different buttons here. Now, if you look at the Launch Control XL, the way that this is set out is that I have my 2 send controls. So this is send A and send B. So I've got access to those. If I go underneath, then I've got access to my pan control, again, to position the sound to the left and the right. Under that, I have my fader. And then under that, I have my 2 buttons here. And on this side, I'm able to choose what function these buttons have. So this is the mute switch. Effectively, it's going to turn the track on and off. I can go to solo and solo that channel as well. And if I go to record arm, I can also record arm that track. So the point of me sort of showing you this as a default Ableton screen is that everything that you see on the screen is presented to you directly on the Launch Control XL. So it really makes a lot of sense when you're working in Ableton, because essentially, you know, what you see on the screen is directly in front of you as a nice tactile hardware control surface. So I'll just reopen that last little set as well. Okay. And we'll just sort of show you how we can use Launch Control with the Launchpad as well to get full kind of control over the software. This is a very powerful combination, I should say. You know, Launchpad is perfect for the clip launching delivery, Launch Control XL to be able to tweak and play with the sounds. Now, I'm going to play that synth sample that we had again, and this is just going to just carry on. And if I want to control it with effects, I want to add it to some send effects. I can easily just bring the send effects here. Now, if I've got more than 2 send effects, which I have on this track, I've actually got 5 send effects. I have a send select button here. I just push down, and now I can start to play around with send C and send D. So this is kind of one way of being able to control the effects using sends. But what if I've got some instrumentation or any effects built onto the track itself? Well, again, this is very straightforward. As I mentioned before, the bottom row of buttons here allow you to do things like mute and turn things on and off. The top row allow you to focus directly on a track. So if I push the track focus button and then go to device mode, by pressing device mode, this bottom row of controls here suddenly turn into parameter controls rather than a pan control. So if I just push down and move across, oh, sample stopped, we'll just fire it off again. But now I can move between the different effects that I've got here and then use device control to start to play around with those. Maybe move back over to the filter. So you see you've got total control over all of the parameters. And I mean, hopefully you've noticed there that I haven't had to touch the computer once to be able to do that. Everything that I've done is directly from this hardware in front of me, which means, you know, as I say, it's really sort of taking this focus away from being just completely into the screen with your trackpad to actually into a nice sort of instrument almost style of performance. So with Launch Control XL, as I say, we've got our device control. This is really nice. And again, for example, if I let's move to one of the synths here. I've just got this pad synth here, and I just clicked on this. But basically now I can start to play around with the parameters of this synth. Now, if I've got more than 8 parameters, because you see I've got 8 controls here in front of me, if I've got more than 8 parameters, I can easily just push the device button, and then I can choose different pages. And this will then allow me to access all the various different sections of that particular plugin. So even if you're working with a very big plugin that's got a lot more than 8 parameter controls, you can access them all just by holding down the device button and moving across. And notice as well, when I push the device button and move to the next one, at the bottom of the screen here, you get a yellow bar indicating what it is you're controlling. So this just tells you what my parameter controls are going to be doing at this point. So it's a very useful little reference point to know where you are in that particular synth. Another feature that we've got on the Launch Control XL is this is the sort of the script level integration into Ableton, but we also have our different user modes as well. Now if I push the user button down, the bottom row of buttons light up, and I can choose from different template pages that I've got. And this allows me to freely assign my controls to whatever it is I want to do in Ableton. This can be a really useful combination with the actual factory settings as well. And by just using the factory and user buttons, you have 2 very powerful pages that you can work with. Now, if you notice, if I go to my factory page, we've got different LEDs set up underneath each of the rotary pots. If I move to the user mode, I've changed the LED color here. And that's because this is specifically for another project, but I actually mapped the Novation base station plugin synth to all of the controls on the Launch Control XL. And I color-coded them so I knew exactly where I was in my base station. So I knew that the red LEDs that we have here were controls for the oscillators. The green controls here were for the filters. The yellow ones for the modulation, and so on and so forth. So it's a really nice, easy reference point, again, with that labeling. And I'll just very quickly show you the Launch Control XL editor, which we have here. This is, of course, completely free with Launch Control. And this allows me to go in and actually go specifically to the controls on the device and actually change the type of MIDI controller it is. So in this instance, this is a MIDI CC controller on MIDI channel 1. If I need to change that to a different MIDI channel for whatever reason, I'm able to do so. I can also put a minimum and maximum value in there. So if I just need to work within a certain bandwidth, perhaps for a filter or something like that, I don't want it to go too low or too high, I can actually cap the bandwidth that that works in. And here we have a list of the different LED colors that we have available as well. So it's really easy and straightforward to program Launch Control XL to match your needs perfectly. So that's Launch Control XL. And finally, I'll just move on to the Launchkey Mini. Launchkey Mini has been around for a little while. And this is really kind of like an amalgamation of all of the products that we have. So this is like a little bit of a Launchpad. It's a little bit of a launch control. And it's also a keyboard as well in its own right, of course. Now, Launchkey Mini is the small compact version of the range of Launchkey keyboards. So Launchkey Mini is 25 mini keys. But we also have the 25 full-size keys, 49 and 61. And the functionality on all of those is exactly the same. The differences that you'll see are that on the Launchkey 49 and Launchkey 61, you actually have 9 faders on there as well, similar to the faders that we have here on the Launch Control XL. So Launchkey Mini works on a system called InControl. And InControl is the automatic linking into your music software. This is the InControl button here. I can just turn it on and off as I want. But essentially now, if I have InControl on, and I can move up and down within my Ableton Live set, and you'll see here that the lights are changing. In fact, if I just move up to the very top row, if you look at the top row here on the Launchkey Mini, we have 1 button lit, and if you look at the top row on my Ableton set, I have 1 clip on there. Essentially, what I've got is a single line of clip launching. So let's just move down. I'm going to just trigger trigger some clips here, and maybe we'll just add some extra stuff. Okay, so you can see we're able to easily launch the clips directly from the Launchkey Mini itself. The bottom row of buttons actually allows me to stop clips. So if I just fire these off again, and then I can stop them. Easily enough. So again, I have total control over clip launching directly from the keyboard. Now, I'm going to just use my track button and move across to a track that's labeled piano. Goodness knows why I called it piano, because it's not really a piano sound. But you'll see now that on my Ableton Live instrument here, I have, where's the mouse gone? There we are. I have a thing called blue hand control, if you like. So whenever you see this blue hand, it means that that highlighted device is essentially the thing that you're going to control with your control surface. So on Launchkey Mini here, and on all of the launch keys, we have 8 rotary pots as well. So once again, I can easily just take control over this device and start to manipulate and play with the sound. So again, it's very much taking the idea of, essentially, well, it's turning the computer into a real instrument with hardware control. You can get some very nice expressive stuff directly from the keyboard itself. So you're controlling the software, but it just feels so much nicer and so much more real when you're actually working in this way. So that's Launchkey Mini, Launch Control XL, and the Launchpad S as well. I should say, as I've mentioned, we've got different Launchkey products as well, which are full-size keys. We also have a small version of the Launchpad as well, which is a nice cost-effective way of getting that style of control, a Launchpad Mini. Launch Control XL is the big version, if you like, of the Launch Control, which is simply just the single 2 lines of rotary pot control. But as a combination, this makes for a very nice little modular system. You know, you can pick and choose the right sort of product to control your Ableton Live set. Now, one thing that I do want to mention just before I finish off is this little innocuous-looking black box that we have just plugged in here. This is a brand new product from Novation. This was announced on Thursday of this week, and is the very first time that this has been brought out to the public. This is the AudioHub 2x4. So I have this beautiful MacBook Pro computer here. Unfortunately, I only have 2 USB sockets on here. So, you know, if I want to be able to take this stuff out and perform, I have, 3 USB devices and an audio interface as well. If I want to be able to use that, I need some sort of means of getting all of this USB connectivity into the computer. And that's exactly what the AudioHub is doing. AudioHub 2x4 is essentially a 2 input and 4 output high volume audio interface. It's designed very much for the electronic performer. The volume levels are incredibly high because essentially if you're going to be going into the club environment, you know how it is, you really don't want to be competing in terms of volume levels. You have everything just given to you directly from the interface here. So the other advantage of AudioHub is that it also has 3 USB sockets on there. So not only is it a 2-in and 4-out audio interface, but it's a 3-point USB connection system for all of your peripheral equipment, so your launch products as well. I mean, but we have many different sort of case studies as well. For example, we have here, I'm representing Novation, so why wouldn't I have a whole load of Novation products? But for example, if you're a Machina user or Traktor user, if you use other software, other controllers, it's always very difficult to be able to manage with the amount of USB connectivity you would have on your laptop system. So the AudioHub 2x4 is perfect for that. So there's just a couple of other quick features on AudioHub 2x4. As I say, it's 2 inputs and 4 outputs on the interface. And with having 4 outputs, that's a very useful thing from a digital performance point of view. Because, Well, in this situation, I have my main outputs feeding the PA system that we have here. But what, for example, if I'm working in Traktor and I want to set up a Q headphone mix, I can easily do that by, within Traktor, choosing outputs 3 and 4 for the Q mix. I can then plug my headphones into the headphone socket that we have on the front of the device. I don't know if that's going to make it obvious or not, but I can plug my headphones into the front of the front panel here. I have a switch that allows me to switch between listening to outputs 1 and 2, which is obviously what's going to the front of house, and outputs 3 and 4, which is my Q output within my DJ software. So I can easily queue records up, get them prepared, just by using the AudioHub. On the outputs as well, I should see, hopefully, let's see, is that going to work? Oh yes, hooray. Hopefully you can see this. I have 4 phono connections here as well. So if I am sort of a performer that wants to use an ordinary sort of analog DJ mixer, once again I could set deck 1 to come out of 1 and 2, deck 2 to come out of 3 and 4, and then I can use this in conjunction with an analog mixer as well. If you're the sort of electronic performer that's using different synthesizers and other products as well, there's also a pair of line inputs on the front panel. So, for example, a lot of people these days are doing iPad performance stuff as well. That can easily just be plugged directly into the front panel here, and that signal is then passed through to the outputs, and obviously allows you to join in with the signal that's coming from your software. So that's pretty much it. I'm pretty much done with the presentation. If anybody's got any questions or want to get a bit of hands-on with all of this stuff and have a bit of a play on it, come and visit us on B65, where we've got the Focusrite Novation stand. And yeah, thanks very much for your time. Thanks a lot.